Hello everybody, happy Sunday. Thank you for being here. Appreciate those of you that are here as always in any capacity, especially those of us here in the United States where it's a holiday weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend. So a lot of people are busy and have things going on for one reason or another. So always like to start by saying thank you for all the support being here in any way. The weekly videos, the intention, the meditation, all of it. So thank you. We have a few things to look at here this week. Lots of Mercury things going on. If you have or haven't seen that weekly video, it comes out Saturday, so it came out yesterday. So if you haven't had a chance to see that, go ahead and go back to that when you have a chance. Watch that on YouTube, and that will give you a much more comprehensive look at this week compared to what we are going to look at. But we're going to touch on most of the transits that we have going on here this week. I'm going to go ahead and put the intention up for a moment here. Short, simple, to the point. I was working on adding extra words and it just felt like this just needed to be straight to the point, short. Cognition shifts. Cognition shifts. So our cognition, our cognitive spaces related to our minds, our thoughts, the way that we think about things. So I just want to sit with that intention for just a moment before we go any further, whether or not this is the first time you've heard the intention. Reminder that they always come out on Friday, so that way you can sit with it yourself a little while before we come to our meditative space here. Just see what kind of goodness comes up when you sit with the words and the phrases yourself. And then you have it ahead of that weekly video coming out too, so you can keep the intention in mind while you're listening to the weekly video and just see how it might what kind of comes together and how your mind and your heart start putting things together and working it all out. So trying to set us up for a good start for the week here. So let's sit with the intention for just a moment here. Cognition shifts. Cognition shifts. And what, if anything, comes up when you think about that? Is there anything that it makes you feel? Anything that makes you think about? Are there any emotions that come up with it? Is there anything that it makes you either want to move towards or move away from? Does it make you excited? Does it make you nervous? Does it make you anxious? Does it make you hopeful? And then let's all take a nice deep breath in together, coming through to our intention. Cognition shifts. Deep breath in together and out. There's going to be lots of deep breathing in our meditation. There's a lot of air, there's a lot of Mercury and a lot of Gemini going on this week. So those of you that have watched the video already know that. Let's move over to the chart so we can take a quick look at what we have going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and put up the real-time clock here on Solar Fire. So this is the chart of the time now where I am located. So if you are watching the participating in the meditation and the live stream live with us, then this is the chart based on my location. So all of the degrees and the locations of the planets will be the same for you. What might be different depending on where you are located would be the house placement. So we're not necessarily looking at what houses the planets are in unless it's just to identify a sign on the wheel and to be able to find it quickly, but looking at the placements and the transits here through the chart. And it seems like this is giving us a nice way to just kind of get a visual. If looking at the chart is overwhelming, feel free just to kind of tune out to looking at it. Just close your eyes or look at something else and maybe just kind of listen. But I think when we visually see the chart, even just in small amounts, even if it's just in, just kind of becoming familiar with seeing the wheel. A lot of us hear a lot about astrology and what's going on, but we don't necessarily see the wheel and the glyphs. It just starts to create another level of the relationship with the energies that we are working with. We're creating a relationship when we're coming to this meditative space, right? We talk about that quite a bit. this is the visual relationship. So this is just another layer that we can kind of add on to here. So the things that we are looking at here are going to mostly be in the sign of Gemini. In this chart, Gemini is in the 8th house. So if you look at the middle ring in the center and you find the number 8, that is the 8th house, and you will find Gemini within that sign. I always use the whole sign house system, so we will have one sign in its entirety per house. It's not going to be broken up at all. So we find Gemini in the 8th house in this chart here. We see right now we have the sun in Gemini. We talked about that last week. It's currently sitting at 5 degrees, and we still have Jupiter. Jupiter is only going to be in there for a little while, and then Jupiter is going to move on to the sign of Cancer. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at is that Mercury is going to be ingressing into the sign of Gemini here during our meditation. So if you are watching this live with us, we are going to have Mercury ingressing in, it's right about 9 o'clock. If I push this forward, you're going to see it shift houses here a little bit, but yeah, 9:01 p.m. Eastern time. So again, Eastern time zone, you'll have to calculate that to your own time zone if you live elsewhere. But here in about a half an hour, a little under that, we have Mercury ingressing into the sign of Gemini. I think that it's absolutely lovely that we have this ingress in the middle of our meditation, right around the time that we usually transition from the talking point into the meditative point. I think there is a symbolic level to that. We talk about Mercury being the guider of souls and the one that can move between worlds and it guides souls from the physical world, from the place where we live this life, into the underworld or into the afterlife, into whatever you believe comes next. That's Mercury, that's Hermes, that's the guider of the souls that takes us from the physical plane into the underworld, and then we move on from there. So we have Mercury switching signs and ingressing from the sign of Taurus into its sign right about the time that we usually switch from this talking and discussing part of the meditation into our actual meditation. So I find that to be a little symbolic and a little bit interesting here. So we have Mercury moving into the sign of Gemini, its own sign. And then tomorrow, we have the new moon in the sign of Gemini. If I bring this forward to tomorrow, it's just under 24 hours. So, I'm just going to bring it forward here. 6 degrees. There we go. So, oh, sorry, just over 24 hours instead of just under. So tomorrow we have the new moon in the sign of Gemini, just after Mercury ingresses into it. And then we see that Mercury is going to work its way into a trine with Pluto. So Mercury in this chart is sitting at 2 degrees of Gemini. We will see Pluto at 3 degrees of Aquarius in the second house. That's a trine aspect that is forming, and it will come through just after, just into Tuesday morning. So we have Mercury ingressing into the sign of Gemini. Then we have a new moon in the sign of Gemini coming through as Mercury is making a trine to Pluto. And then later on this week on Thursday, we bring, hang on, I'm having a little issue with my mouse here. See if I can make it move. All right, guys, occasionally this mouse gets a little temperamental and it just doesn't want to do what it's supposed to do. So bear with me here for just a moment. Come on, Mercury, guide me, huh? All right, well, it just doesn't want to move forward here on the wheel. That's okay. We can still make this work here. Just a couple days later, on Thursday, Mercury is going to move into, sorry, hang on here. All right. Well, I'm just going to bring myself back up here. Oh, it up here. Okay, there we go. Frazzled me there for a little bit. Okay, so just a couple days after the new moon that we have coming through on Monday, we have Mercury is going to make a conjunction with the sun at 9 degrees of Gemini. So we have the Mercury Cazimi coming through, which is a resetting point for Mercury. So it's a huge week for Mercury coming through here. It's a huge week for Gemini energy. I have been eyeing up this new moon period here for quite a while, because it's very auspicious with what is going on with Mercury here. So Mercury, being the planet of our mind, the planet of our thoughts, communications, perceptions, it is about our cognition. It is about the way that we process things and the mental processes that happen within our head that deal with the knowledge that we have and our understanding of different thoughts, the way that we process things, the way we communicate about things, all of the sensory perceptions and the way that we perceive different things that come in through all of the different senses. That is all Mercury type situations and type things to look at. So when we have Mercury moving into its own home sign, Gemini, where it's able to move quickly, it's able to process things, it's an air element, it's its home sign. Mercury likes to bring in lots of different information, it likes to look at lots of details, it likes to bring in lots of different things. Mercury rules two signs, just like all of the planets do. It rules Gemini and Virgo. Gemini is the masculine sign, so there is lots of information that is coming in and then being put out, and seeing how can we use that information, how can we utilize that information, how can we be curious about different things that are coming in, and then how can we process them. It's the masculine air element, so it's a lot about the mental processes. So Gemini is going to come from a tangible space of Taurus, a place of Venus, a place of looking for enjoyment and maybe being a little bit slower, taking a slower pace. Now things are going to start to pick up. So maybe if your mental processes and your thoughts and the maybe ambition in the way of the mental space that we have, feeling like we are able to hold on to more at one time, where Mercury in the sign of Taurus probably doesn't want to be overwhelmed and wants to be able to relax and not necessarily feel like there's too much on the table. Mercury in the sign of Gemini wants there to be lots of things on the table, wants to be able to bring in lots of different information and juggle little things. It might not always have the follow through, it might get curious about something else before it moves through, but there is lots of information that is happening and lots of information that is coming in and then can be distributed from there. So there's a huge focus on knowledge, information, and communication here with Mercury in the sign of Gemini. There's a little bit of an exploration and a playfulness. So maybe we start to find different things that catch our interest, or we start to wonder about something different, or we start to think, be a little bit more curious about wanting to understand something a little bit more deeply, especially with Mercury coming across that trine to Pluto. There's going to be there can be a little bit of an intensity that comes along with it, and an ability to process things deeply. So if Mercury is the way we process things, and Pluto is the depths, and it can be things that are even a little shadowy or things that are a little underworld like, that can just be the things that we just don't necessarily want to talk about. And it can just be like simple as like things that we don't talk about due to like manners and things like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be things that we want to keep hidden because there's something that is maybe like less desirable about it. It could be that too, but it's not necessarily have to be the, you know, like the worst of the worst type of things here. And the new moon in the sign of Gemini, just after Mercury is ingressing into there. What a great moment to create some sort of new mental process, to create space to be able to explore something new, or be able to organize our mental space so that way we can dissect little different pieces of our routines and of our habits. Maybe we start thinking about where Gemini falls within our chart, what house that is in. Where can we maybe find a little bit of curiosity and be able to shift our mental focus a little bit? Maybe we can pick up the speed a little bit and be able to do a little bit more and move a little bit more fluidly, or a little bit more agile in a way where we can shift back and forth, and we can play with a couple different things at one time if we want to. Maybe as we have this new moon coming through in the sign of Gemini, the way that you think about things starts to change a little bit. Maybe your perception starts to shift a little bit, and you're able to see a different side of something, or maybe a way to solve a different problem. Maybe within the mental sphere and with this square to Pluto, maybe things start coming up within our memory that can help us a little bit. So like, I don't know, maybe like past experiences or past knowledge that we have in our head someplace, but it's not really right at the forefront, but we're able to kind of dig that knowledge out in a way. Or like we refresh our mind on something, like you learned about some sort of specific process a long time ago, but you kind of you've stepped away from it for a little while, so then you find a book and you kind of brush up on it a little bit, and you're like, oh yeah, this all kind of comes back to me a little bit. That could be the Mercury trining Pluto aspect a little bit coming through there. So there's an ability to create lots of new mental processes here this week, but then digging deep within at the same time. Gemini can be a little surface level, I feel like sometimes, because although it wants to understand lots of different information, and it wants to, you know, like kind of take things apart and look at all the little pieces, it gets just as curious about something else. So Gemini, strong Gemini energy can often be very curious and very playful and very interested in lots of different things, but that can be hard to have one thing hold your attention for a long period of time at the same time. So, you know, the new moon itself is a resetting moment. It's a birthing moment, right? It's the ending of an old cycle and the beginning of a new cycle coming in. Mercury moving from Taurus into the sign of Gemini is a new cycle coming in. It could be it's a short cycle because Mercury is one of the fastest moving planets, but we're going from a period of Mercury, the planet of our mind, our thoughts, communications, the way we perceive things, the tools and the resources that come to us, being within that Taurus section of our lives into the Gemini section of our lives. So it's a shift. It's an ending and a beginning. It's the ending of Mercury and Taurus for now, and Mercury in the sign of Gemini beginning. Mercury and Pluto coming together is another little tip of the hat at an ending and a beginning, just because of the significations of Pluto. Pluto represents death and rebirth within itself, right? It represents transformation by going deep within, looking at traveling to the metaphorical or literal underworld, and then coming back, traveling with Hermes from one world to another, whether that's to gain information, to gain knowledge, to understand another perspective. But it's a rebirth. It's a transformation of some kind here. And then we have the Mercury Cazimi that comes through later on this week. We will have Mercury going from the morning star phase into the evening star phase. So this is a rebirth for Mercury as well. Anytime a planet moves across the sun and comes into contact with the sun, it's going through a synodic cycle rebirth, which is it touching base with the sun. Anytime that a planet comes into contact with the sun, you can think of it as a resetting moment, as a moment of burning up and then being reborn. Thinking of like the phoenix bird that, you know, is reborn from its ashes, kind of like that. And then we have Saturn, which has just recently entered the sign of Aries. Overnight from Saturday into Sunday. It was like 11 p.m. Eastern time last night. So you may be feeling that kind of shift from a watery focus into a fiery focus, or maybe there's a little bit of a combination of that right now coming through, like within the last couple days here, of like, emotions and a little fire energy. So whether that's like emotional passion or getting heated up about the way we feel about things, those are kind of possibilities there. Or it could just feel really good to have Saturn leaving the house that it's been in. That's completely fair too, because Saturn in one sign for 2.5 years, although there's lots of good foundational things that can come up from it, there's also there's also a weighty focus, right? There could be limitations. There could be things that have been kind of holding us back where we can't fully express that area of our chart for whatever reason. It could be because we're building a foundation and we have to be very, very serious in order to move forward in the future. But nonetheless, at the time, it can be a little boring, a little monotonous, or it could feel a little bit weighty in some way or another. And then that could be a little stronger for some people than others. So Saturn moving signs, just like Mercury, is going from one time period to another. It's a little bit more like moving from one era to another because Saturn moves way slower than Mercury. It takes like between 2 and 2.5 years for Saturn to transit through a sign. Saturn will bop back into Pisces like we've talked about before in the fall, but then it will move back into Aries for good. And when you have Saturn, and I've talked a lot about Saturn in the sign of Aries and the initiatory process and the starting and the beginning, the birthing of the sign of Aries, right? It's the first sign of the zodiac. You have Saturn moving in there where it is traditionally considered to be depressed because Saturn is exalted in the sign of Libra, the opposite sign of Aries. So then you have the planet in its fall when it's opposite the place where it's exalted. The exaltation of a planet is where you can think of it where, like, if the planet that, or the sign that it rules is like its home sign where it has everything that it needs and it can just be totally itself and comfortable. The exaltation is a place that is similar, so it lifts up the planet. And then the place that is opposite of it is where the planet is in its fall, so it has the ability to symbolically or literally kind of fall or move down a level in some way, or be like, it's more of a difficult place for the planet to be in. Traditionally thinking based on the rationale of the planets and the significations of the signs and what they represent together. If you think of the sign of Aries, it's the first sign of the zodiac. It represents new life, new beginning. We have the spring equinox, right, where the sun is coming back into its full power in the sign of Aries, at 0 degrees of Aries. So it's this new birth sign of initiating, going on its own way. And then we have Saturn, the planet of death, the planet of decay, the planet of Father Time, the old man, right? So we have the old man, and then we have the newborn baby. You see why these two don't necessarily mesh. The energy of a newborn and the energy of the dying, there's a connection there, of course, but they're very, very different energies. So when you put the planet of the old, of the dying, of the decaying in the sign of starting something new and initiatory, there's a struggle between the two. There's a struggle between the way things have been and then the way things may be going and the way things could be if we did something maybe a little bit different. Saturn, if it represents the foundations and the frameworks and the structures, I like the word framework, like the foundation of a house. And then it's in the place where things are newly being born, then you could have old structures that are being challenged by something new. You could have old structures that are being encouraged to initiate something new in a way. So then, is there any difficulty between what we are letting go of and what we are creating? Is there any sort of power struggle or play there? So that's an ending and a beginning right there that we are just starting to initiate. And all of this here this week leads to mental shifts, cognitive shifts. So changing within the way we think about things, the way we experience things, and the way we perceive that things that come into us. Wide variety of mental functions, and our attention could be shifting. The way where the big focus, where that big Saturn focus could be shifting here. So I just wanted to leave the intention at cognition shifts because I want you to fill in the blanks. Where do you need, or where do you see the changes happening within your mind? Where do you see the way you process things shifting or changing? Where are there tools or resources that could help you start to shift or start to change or start to allow, when I think of shift, it's not quite as drastic to me as change. Change seems more like a right angle turn, like we're gonna take a 90-degree turn. A shift feels a little bit more rounded, and it feels a little more gentle, a little bit more flowy. And that could be a little bit more Gemini, like where Gemini just kind of flows through the energies that are around here. So I really, really like this energy for initiating something, for creating some sort of new mental process, for being able to communicate things that we need to say, things that we need to communicate. For being able to organize things within our head and maybe be able to problem solve a little bit. Wherever it feels like that new start has been needed, this Gemini energy here this week can help us with that. We have lots of levels of restarting, reinitiating things coming through here. We have the new moon tomorrow. We have Mercury moving into the sign of Gemini here very, very soon. And we have the Cazimi coming through. We have Mercury moving into the trine with Pluto. So that's a beneficial aspect too. So that's the mental processes, and Mercury and Gemini being able to work with Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, being able to work with the depth of the mind and the depth of the processes. Air element is very social, very communicative, and it doesn't necessarily focus on just us. It focuses on us and that which is around us. It's our environment. It's the others that we communicate with, that we talk with. Excuse me. So when we think about Mercury, when we think about Gemini, there really is a wide variety of energy that that falls underneath that, because when we're talking about our mental processes and the way that we process things and the way that we handle things, from there, the way we communicate about them and the way that others communicate with us, those things, like just about everything in our life, there's some level of communication to it, right? There is some level of way we perceive all of our experiences. That's just part of the human experience and moving from, moment to moment, day to day. So when we talk about mental energy, there really is so many different areas of our lives that it could be encompassing. And then if you look at the house that Gemini is within your chart, or where Mercury falls within your own birth chart, you may see some more clues, but chances are you are feeling and thinking it through your head here as we are talking. So yeah, we are like 5 minutes away from Mercury moving into the sign of Gemini. So I'm going to look at our cards here really quick. Two of them popped out. I thought that was pretty fitting for Gemini, the twins. There's a duality within there, right? I kind of thought I was going to talk more about the sign of Gemini within itself, but I guess I did within. Yeah, I want to get into the meditation today. Anyways, two cards that popped up, two swords of the air element. So that just kind of, that's fitting, right? That tracks. So the first card that popped up, and of course these just kind of popped up together, like they sometimes do. The first one is the Five of Swords. Five of Swords here, but it came in the reverse position. So it was like this, the Five of Swords reversed. Second card that came up right behind it was the Nine of Swords in the upright position. Oh, getting this to tune in is always hard. It's got to be closer to my face. That's what it is. It's trying to track my face. So we have the Nine of Swords. So we have the Five of Swords and the Nine of Swords. The Five is reversed. The Nine is upright. Both of these two cards together, if they were both upright, would make me wonder about a whole lot going on up here in the mental space. Difficulty communicating, a lot in the head that we're not able to get out, struggles and overwhelm, anxiety. However, the Five of Swords The fives often represent some sort of struggle, some sort of challenge, some sort of difficulty, but it's in the reverse position. So it's telling me that there is an ability to, whatever the mental struggle is, whatever has been mentally limiting you and holding you back, there's a solution for it. And this Gemini energy may just help us problem solve getting through that if you don't already feel that starting to soothe a little bit. The Nine of Swords speaks to a lot going on within the mental sphere as well. It can be very, very overwhelming, and it can be very, like all of our focus is going to the mental sphere and what we've been thinking about. There's probably a lot of people that have felt very overwhelmed lately mentally. You know, and Mercury in the sign of Taurus does not like to be overwhelmed. So it can be where like maybe we can usually handle a little bit more than what we've been able to handle recently. So now Mercury moving into the sign of Gemini, maybe it'll allow us to step back a little bit, or be a little bit more objective rather than subjective to the things that are going on around us. The Nine of Swords can be very, very overwhelming, and it can be it can take our focus away from other things. However, the Nine tells me that things are coming to a head, coming to a completion. Sometimes the energy has to really ramp up before it can kind of come down. So like, it's kind of like that old phrase, like, I don't know, I don't like to talk like, I don't necessarily like to talk this way. I usually like to talk like very positively, but when there's kind of like a phrase about like things getting worse before they get better. And sometimes it does kind of go that way. Like things have to come to a height or come to a culmination. That's what the Nine is to me. It's the culmination. So things are not quite complete, but we're almost there. And when we're getting to that point, and things are coming to a head, it can be very overwhelming because all of these things are coming together at one time. So if you've had a lot of different ideas, a lot of different thoughts, a lot of different communications, or maybe some struggles within there, maybe there's been a lot of different resources coming your way and you're not really sure which one to use, this energy this week may help us start to see what to focus on, or be able to initiate a new level, which takes the Five of Swords from the upright position into the reverse position. Yeah, even though the one card is reversed, it still feels like there's a lot going on in the mental sphere. There's a lot to be communicated for some people, and there's a lot that is being held probably in the head for a lot of people at the same time. So how can we shift our cognition? How can we shift our mental state? How can we bring in the mindset that will help us move forward in a positive, productive way, no matter what the outcome is? Because the outcome can't always be the best that we want it to be, right? Like that's always the hope, and we want things to turn out the best that they can. But there's a mix of fate and free will, right? I don't think that we are completely fated and destined. I don't think we are completely in control. I think it's someplace in the middle. Those are my opinions and my thoughts. You can have your own. But my gut feeling is that it's got to be a combination of some kind here. So all of this ways that we can start something new within our mind. And a lot of the way we handle things starts up here, right? Like, yes, there's external influences, there's external things within the environment that are beyond our control, and sometimes things just, they really get under our skin or whatever. But you change your mindset, you change your life. I firmly believe that. And we have a chance to do that here this week. So that doesn't mean that, all of these swords aren't here. The Five of Swords, the Nine of Swords, the five is reversed. So that struggle, that challenge, there's a solution. Even if I don't know if everybody sees it yet, because the Nine of Swords is still here. So there's an overwhelm. There's still a lot going on, okay? Trying to juggle 9 swords at one time here. Not easy. It can be leave us feeling very restless and very anxious. But we can shift our mindset and we can start a new process in the sign of Gemini. We can be curious about, well, what if this? What if that? and we just kind of explore that. And it can be exploring it in a little deeper way than what we normally would. Maybe we have a little bit more courage to explore a little bit deeper with the Pluto influence that we have this week. And maybe if we're reaching deep within something, we can find a way to empower ourselves. Pluto brings a lot of power and a lot of strength too. So that's a possibility. So I'm going to just bop back over to the solar fire chart here just really quick so we can all see that Mercury has just entered the sign of Gemini. So as we move into our meditation, we have Mercury, Hermes, the guider of souls, the guider of our meditation, moving into its home sign. So we have the intention up here on the screen. I'm going to leave that up for just another minute here. Cognition shifts. Cognition shifts. I'm looking in the comments. Hi, Nikita. Hi, Melissa. Thank you for being here. Appreciate both of you. Hello to everybody else too, again. All right, I'm going to move the intention out of the way, and you're going to see that we have Hermes on the altar here today. I have a couple fluorite crystals. I just feel like something to guide us intuitively and guide that mental space is really, really good for today. So that's what I have here, in addition to some selenite that I've had up here for a while now. I really just want to create a space of fresh, new, blank slate. So I want to do a lot of deep breathing today. I want to do a lot of breathing exercises and a lot of moving of the air and just kind of pulling into that. If at any point during the meditation, the breathing is not working for you, then listen to your body. Do what you need to do. If I'm telling you to hold a breath and that does not work well for you, then you don't hold the breath. Listening to your body and taking ownership of that and listening to and giving ourselves what we need is always important in the meditative space. But as we're exploring the breath maybe a little deeper today, then just know that you modify it however you need to here. Yeah, so that quick little disclaimer as we come into our meditation. I'm going to light the intentional candle. It's white as always. There is white sage oil in these candles. Purity, cleansing, blank slate for the week. So perfect for each week, but especially for our new moon week. I think the white candle works well for the new moon as well. So yeah, I'm going to light our intentional candle, and as I do so, I'm going to recite the intentional phrase. As I do, I encourage you to say it with me in any capacity that you are able to. Okay. I'm going to light our intentional candle. The flame will ignite, and as the flame ignites, the flame begins to grow. As the flame begins to grow, so does our intention. Cognition shifts. Cognition shifts. The way we think about things, the way we process that which is in front of us, the way we rationalize thoughts within our heads, the way we remember and recall things, the way we communicate with others, the way we communicate with ourselves. All of that is in focus this week. And we have the ability to create a seeding moment, to create new energy. That doesn't necessarily mean that we can see it playing out right away, right? Like when you plant a seed, it takes a little while for it to germinate and for it to start to come above ground before you can see it. A lot like how Saturn in the sign of Aries is going to create brand new structures, and it's going to challenge some old ones for us potentially, collectively and individually in our lives. But it's going to take some time. It's a transit that's going to last over the next 2 years. So it's not going to be that immediately, necessarily, things start to fall. Could be. Haven't watched the news today. But there's a process. And that process starts with an initiation, with a seeding moment, with a seed that is planted. Here, we plant seeds with our breath during this meditation. So, let's come into our space and into our own energy. If you haven't already, I invite you to find a nice, comfortable position, seated, laying down, whatever works for you. And if you have any little wiggles or fidgets that you need to get out, go ahead and shake out your hands, shake out your arms, shake out your legs, maybe move your head in some circles. Take a little stretch if you need to. I feel like I need to, so maybe somebody else needs to. Movement. Gemini does not necessarily hold still. So even though that the movement is mental, physical movement can bring mental movement. All right. So if you're ready to go ahead and do so, I invite you to close your eyes. If you're not quite ready to do so yet, then just soften your gaze and relax your eyes. If your eyes never close within this meditation, that's completely okay. Try to find a point that you can look towards, maybe not focus so intently on, but maybe just kind of gaze beyond or look towards or look beyond. Maybe eventually your eyes start to get heavy and begin to soften. Maybe eventually your eyes begin to close. And if not, that's okay too. As we begin to settle into our meditative space, let's begin by taking a moment to check in with our breath. When I ask you to check in with your breath, here I encourage you to attempt to observe the breath, acknowledge the quality of the breath at this moment, while doing your best to not pass any judgments on the breath or attempt to change or alter the breath in any way. Here in the beginning, we are simply acknowledging where our breath is at this moment. Acknowledging the level of energy and the quality of the breath that you have come to this meditation with. And everything that has come before this meditation, the moments leading up to it, everything that's happened to you today, through this weekend, through the week, through the month, through the season, through the year, and even extending through your lifetime. All of your experiences, all of your knowledge, everything you've learned and everything you've been through, it has all brought you to this moment. So therefore, it has all played a part in the level of breath that you are holding right now. When we take a moment to acknowledge the breath, feel into the breath and understand the breath, understand maybe where it's come from, whether it feels like our breath is exactly where we want it to be, or it feels like there's a whole lot of work to do on it. Perhaps, or most likely, it's somewhere in the middle. But when we sit with that, in that space, without changing or altering, we're finding a way to honor not only our breath, but all of those experiences of the lifetime. We're going to sit here for just a very short moment today. Before we move on and begin deepening the breath, I encourage you to give thanks and gratitude for the breath that you have come here with, for the level of energy, no matter how fulfilling or how lacking it feels, because, like I mentioned a moment ago, everything has led you to this moment. So when you're honoring your breath, you are honoring your path in your life. And our life is the teacher. Our experiences, and now slowly we begin to deepen the breath. Here at first, I encourage you to move slow and steady. Let's allow our only goal to be that each inhale brings in slightly more air than the one before it, and each exhale releases slightly more air than the one that came before that. Moving slowly and steadily through the breath, we begin with the inhale, breathing in slow and easy, feeling that air entering your body, moving down your throat into your lungs. And as your lungs begin to expand, your abdomen distends. Internally, your diaphragm moves lower, your belly button moves away from the navel, and you fill. Opposite on the exhale, as that breath slowly starts to move, you feel your lungs start to depress, releasing the air. Abdomen moves back to a normal, neutral position, as does your diaphragm. That air comes up through your throat and exits your body. Continuing a few rounds of breath on your own here, really just diving into the breath today. Continuing the process of moving in and out with the breath, breathing in, bringing energy in from the universe, breathing out, releasing our air and our energy from our being into the universe. Each time we inhale and exhale, there is a relationship that is built with the environment around us. The energy and the ethers around us come into our being, and energy from our being expels into the universe. So as you sit with your inhale and your exhale, deepening and honoring, you are cultivating and building that relationship. And what a wonder it is to think that that breath of ours continues through the respirations, the process of inhaling and exhaling, whether or not we are consciously thinking about it. Sometimes we think about the breath and we focus on it for one reason or another. But other times we are just moving throughout our day and we are inhaling and we are exhaling. We are exchanging that energy with the environment and the universe around us, consciously and subconsciously. It's another little tidbit that connection with the universe is always there on so many levels, right down to the simple breath, that autonomic function of your body that just happens without you even thinking about it. Many traditions around the world throughout time have seen circles and holes in nature as signs of portals, places of energy, places of shifting from one place to another, going from one state to another or one place to another, an initiation of some sort, a transference of energy. So the holes or the orifices on our body can be seen as portals of different kinds. Each time we breathe in and out, the air enters and exits either through our mouth or through our nose. Portals, openings to our being, to our vessels. What if we imagined at these portals that we have, where air comes in and out? You can even consider the other orifices on your body. What if we pictured these areas to be guided and protected in one way or another? Perhaps we picture little energetic guides, perhaps gods or goddesses, that sit at the openings, specifically our nose and our mouth, where this energy is transferred from one place to another, from our being into the ethers around us, or from the ethers around us into our own being. Picture these areas as doorways that open and close. Perhaps you physically see the door and you take note of what that door looks like. Perhaps that could be symbolically relevant to you in one way or another. So picture at these doors or at these gates a guider or a protector of some kind, ushering in the transference of energy, guiding the breath and the energy, just as Hermes guides souls from the physical world to the underworld. Notice how these energies stand guard, standing tall, firm, and strong, while letting the air move through. And as you move the air through these gates, through these portals, let's see if we can hear the breath, an audible breath moving in and out. As you breathe in and out. Perhaps you breathe in through your nose first and out through your nose. Moving air through in the same way once more, in through your nose and out through your nose. Moving at your own pace, of course, as always. Air moving in and out through the same gate, through the same door, past the same guard. How does that feel as that air moves in and out of your nostrils? Moving through your own nasal portals through your body. Is it invigorating? Is it energizing? Does it feel depleting in any way? Cultivate that relationship. And with each inhale and exhale, give thanks to the protector and the guard that is standing near your portal at all times. Notice what shifts within you as you breathe in and out, powerfully and loudly through your nose. Now together, let's meet at the bottom of the exhale. Meeting together after the next round of breath. And this next time, as we begin to breathe in and out, I encourage you to breathe in through your nostrils and breathe out through your mouth. Once again, as you exhale, see if you can make that breath heard. See if the breath can get a little louder each time. And as you bring a little bit more air in through your nose than the breath before that, see if you can hear the air moving through your nostrils within your own being. Starting the process of breathing in and breathing out, in through your nose, out through your mouth, hearing that audible breath. We begin the inhale together, and then we take our own pace from there. As we inhale and exhale, focusing on those guiders and those protectors that are at the gates. Now, there are two. There is a duality that we are looking at here. Just as in the sign of Gemini can represent two things at one time, we have two portals that we are activating here. Starting with the inhale together and then finding our own pace from there. Breathing in and out. This breath should feel fulfilling in one way or another. Perhaps it feels energetically uplifting. Perhaps you feel energized. Perhaps you feel yourself moving through the portals to another plane. As we come towards the end of our meditation, let's see if you can have the loudest breaths you've had through this entire meditation. Breathing in, feeling all of their air coming in, breathing out, pushing all of their air out through the gates of the mouth. Last inhale in, biggest, deepest inhale in through that nasal gate that you've taken all day. And biggest exhale through the mouth, through that oral gate, the guider, allowing the air to come out. One more breath in at your own pace, however feels good to you. And as we exhale, I invite you to bring hands together at the palm, bringing them either to your heart space, to your forehead, or towards your lips. Sitting in this space that you have cultivated for just a moment or two. The energy that you have cultivated through your breath, through this practice, may that take you through this week. And may you find some process to initiate. May you find a way to shift your thoughts. Cognition shifts. It changes, it alters. It moves beyond. I love the energy of this week. Like I said, I've been looking at this new moon for quite a while. I feel like Mercury moving into Gemini just before the new moon. You know, normally when a planet is that close to the sun before Cazimi, it can be a little overpowered by the sun. It can sometimes be weakened, but just overran. It's going through a transformation. It's going within to be able to move through that Cazimi and that rebirth. So it's ending its morning star phase, moving into the evening star phase, moving from the youthful phase, the exuberant, the expanding energy of looking for something new, initiating, into the evening star, a little bit more mature, the feminine expression. So taking all that it has learned, everything that it has experienced and everything that it has brought in through the morning star phase, bringing that into the evening star phase to be able to move through a little more experience, a little bit more matured. And being able to initiate a cycle from that. Normally, like I said, Mercury so close to the sun, even at the time of the new moon, would normally be considered to be a little overpowered or a little bit overwhelmed. However, when a planet is within its own home sign, it is protected from that. It is considered to be within its own chariot. So it's almost like if the sun is beating down and it's, there's a potential for sunburn. We are in a chariot. We have a shelter over us. We have some sort of layer between us and the sun. So although we may feel the heat of the sun, there's a protection around it, just like the protectors of our portals. that we have, our nose, our mouth, these portals that we were just working through. I felt the energy. I'm sure you all felt it moving through too. So there is the ability to change your mindset, change your mind, change your life. Change your mindset, change your life. That doesn't necessarily mean if there's any events that are going on that are difficult. I think a lot of people probably have a lot going on with all of the swords that we have coming up here, especially the 5 and the 9, specifically on the cards. But we can shift. We can start to change our mind here. And we can't, this is the last, I mentioned this in the weekly video. This is the last new moon with Jupiter in the sign of Gemini. So we have Mercury, the ruler of the new moon, as well as the greater benefic Jupiter, co-present in the sign. Beneficial communication, beneficial mental processes. So let's utilize this one last push here before Jupiter moves on to the sign of Cancer. Jupiter in Cancer is going to be wonderful too. That's its place of exaltation. So Jupiter in Cancer has some very, very great qualities, but we still have a little bit of time left to utilize the Jupiter in Gemini time. And to create some sort of blessing or some sort of cohesive way that all of the information that has come to us since Jupiter's been in the sign of Gemini over the last year or so, everything that we've learned, and bring that into this lunar cycle here. So, yeah, I hope you find some fresh breath energy this week. Like winds of change was kind of another phrase that that I've been using a lot this week for myself. So, find ways to connect to the breath, find ways to find those winds of change and to just shift our mindset just enough to be able to, see whatever the next step is. Or if it's that we can just completely change our mindset and just, find a complete new motivation of some kind, then absolutely, absolutely go for it. So happy Mercury in Gemini, happy new moon, happy Mercury Gazimi. There is numerous ways that we are resetting this week. So if you need a mental reset, this is the week for it. Cognition shifts. If you haven't seen the weekly video, go to YouTube and find that video that was released yesterday. Check back to social media pages and the website next Friday for the next week's intention, and then you can find next week's video released next Saturday, and I will see you back here next Sunday. I will be coming off of a camping trip, but I think there should be no issue getting back here in time for our meditation. So I will see you all here next week, and I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful week. Happy new moon, and pay attention to where Gemini is within your own chart if you have the ability to do so. And if you are not quite sure how to do that, I am always available for readings, and that is all listed on the website as well. So always willing and happy to break those things down for you. So yeah, happy Gemini new moon. Happy last week of May. Next week when we come here, it will be June 1st. I like June 1st because it's my daughter's birthday. Yeah. Happy new moon, happy end of May, and I will see you all next week. I hope that this meditation that was just a little bit different has served you well. Yeah, happy days, happy. So take care and reach out at any time. Bye, everybody.